Chapter 3. How Reynard did not swear on Surly's tooth. This was no longer the same Ysgrim. He was sure of himself now. His neck was stretched out firmly in evil resolve. What could he have done during his absence to give himself such a triumphant air? Perhaps only Grimbart suspected, for he had seen Tibbet slip behind the oak tree, entice Ysgrim into the shade, and take him quickly aside. The cunning of a cat and the strength of a wolf. What a menace if they were to unite! Grimbart trembled for Reynard, prepared to keep his eyes and ears open, and did not miss a single word of what Sir Ysgrim said.
"Your Majesty," cried the wolf, "and all of you who are listening to me here, what is the use of disputing further? The moment is favourable for the just and harsh for the wicked, whom it will destroy. While we were talking, a spy, a dog belonging to mankind, has slipped through to Breviand and was observing us from the shade. What was his intention? His name alone will tell you, for it is Surly, out from Rufus's mastiff."
A shudder ran through the crowd. Ysgrim waited for a moment. He felt supported and as though inspired by the alarm he felt he was causing, and the words he hurled at the gathering were now full of meaning.
"Tibbet, the vigilant observer, saw him. Together we took him by surprise, and I, Ysgrim, with my paws and my teeth, have just crushed him and strangled him to death."
He bared his dark red lips. More than one beast, looking at those jaws that had just killed and listening to that hoarse, savage voice, secretly took his side in a cowardly fashion, feeling concerned already because they had laughed too heartily at the over-entertaining Reynard.
"The dog is there," said Ysgrim, "behind that bracken. Let us step aside so that everyone may see him, his nose soiled with earth, his long tooth protruding from his jaw, which now will never bite again."
And at these words, turning suddenly towards Reynard with a terrible abrupt movement, the wolf concluded in a resounding voice.
"And let Reynard go forward in front of everyone and swear on Surly's tooth that he has told the truth, and that I, Ysgrim, have lied. This mastiff, our common enemy, lies bleeding from the death that I have just inflicted on him, and he awaits your oath, Reynard. Go forward and swear. A pledge given on the warm corpse of an enemy will satisfy me."
In the meantime, the animals, submissive yet stubborn at the same time, gradually moved away with a subdued murmur of complaint to the rough clearing which the wolf indicated with his glance. And there, lying in the bracken, the body of Surly was visible to all eyes. It was Surly all right, lying on his back, his legs stiff. His coat, which was of an ugly fawn colour dappled with iron-grey markings, was covered with blood and soil, the traces of the merciless struggle that had just laid him low. His long protruding tooth, lying across his pug-like muzzle, gave him, even in death, an expression of ferocious hostility which horrified everyone. Reynard saw him first. There was no longer anyone between him and Surly. He looked up at the lion and saw immediately that Noble was again lost in a distant dream. He would not condescend to give his support. Reynard took one step forward, then another. Then he caught sight of a shadow by his side and recognised Grimbart the badger.
"Take care,"
whispered Grimbart. They were very close to the dog now, and at the same moment they saw something that made them start, for the mastiff's sides heaved. What happened next took just the time of a headlong dash. Reynard had leapt across the empty space and rushed away, and Surly, the supposedly dead dog, immediately rushed into the crowd and began the chase, uttering furious barks over the moorland and the wood. And immediately, one after the other, 50 voices echoed his, frantic, deep, eager and shrill, resonant as bronze, grating like saws, crying and howling in competition like a pack in full cry, free and wild, all the dogs of the district against the poor solitary fox.
"Perjury!"
cried Ysgrim. "Treachery!" cried Grimbart. For a few moments, confusion and panic scattered the animals in all directions. Isgrim darted forward as though to take part in the chase, but suddenly changed his mind and returned to Grimbart's side. Bruin the bear gesticulated with his enormous paws and muttered indistinct words. Snorter pawed the ground with his hoof, and Bamber grunted loudly, stretching his tines. King Noble alone had not moved. He still lay outstretched on the rock, looking down from on high with immense disdain on this confusion and tumult. "Your Majesty," said the badger calmly. "We are listening, Grimbart," said the lion. Everything quietened down. Grimbart spoke, and the silence became deeper and more solemn. "A true king cannot do wrong," said Grimbart. "Your very name, Lord Noble, condemns this villain. Not content with his brute force, he is guilty of the worst type of crime, for he is the criminal who accuses the innocent party of his own misdeeds. And up there, on that oak tree, is his worthy companion, Tibbet the cat, whom I denounce also." Tibbet lay flat on his branch, almost merging into it, but the twin green fires of his eyes were visible in the shade of the leaves. He hissed, and Bruin the bear growled, but Noble, raising his head and tossing back his thick mane, uttered a brief roar, harsh and grating, which was enough to silence the bravest. "Speak without fear, Grimbart," he said, "and tell us all you know." "I saw," Grimbart went on, indicating Tibbet with his muzzle. "I saw this character make a sign to Isgrim with his eyes, and I saw that killer obey him at once. It was obvious that this was a prearranged signal, a scheme that had been worked out long in advance. It is a miracle that Reynard, my relative, did not become a victim of such revolting treachery. For after all, Your Majesty, and everyone else, what do you think of the choice of these gutter snipes? What do you think of these dogs who were collected from all around, posted and hidden in the shade to attack Reynard from behind? What do you think of this plot between the mastiff and the wolf, which had the blessings of the cat and the bear, the short-tailed and the tailless? Look at them. They are vexed and furious to see themselves unmasked like this, their trickery in vain and their enemy safe and sound. For Reynard will escape, thank God. He will repair to Malpas, and he won't leave it again in a hurry. Who could blame him for that? But in future, may these three, in the eyes of every free and proud beast, bear the disgrace and burden of a shame that will cling to them, a shame smelling of dog and servants wearing collars. The hounds from the pack wear boarhounds and pugs, purebred dogs and mongrels, far from Breviand and our woods, will make way for these three: Isgrim, Bruin the bear, and Tibbet." "Well spoken, friend Grimbart," said Noble. "Let them be banished from the kingdom. But since there are many of us gathered together at Breviand today, let our subjects utter their opinion along with us. For we love them so much that we are pleased to receive from them the consent and approval of which, as they know, we have no need." With these words, Noble looked round the crowd with his most straightforward expression. No voice was raised, either friendly or hostile. Neither Tibbet nor Bruin undertook to make a stand in his own defence against Grimbart the badger. But on the other hand, neither Snorter nor Bamber, nor even the undaunted Besant, who detested Isgrim and had not concealed the fact, dared to overwhelm him further. As for the small fry, the little birds and the tiny creatures, how many of them regretted having given way to curiosity. They all felt that this business had ceased to be a joke, and, thinking of their well-concealed nests or their deep and secure burrows, they went away quietly, with no tiny leaps or fluttering wings to show for it, trembling lest the lion should see them. Everyone was astonished, therefore, when, in this silence laden with fear, there arose a loud, obstinate voice, full of harsh anger and pride, the voice of Lord Eastgrim the wolf, who was still standing in the middle of the arena as though nothing had happened, his muzzle stretched out towards the king, meeting his gaze without blinking, crying out as at the first moment.
"Your Majesty!"